She was invisible to most, just the black cleaning lady who emptied trash bins and mopped floors. But one afternoon she saw something no one else did, and it was a matter of life or death. Why did no one believe her? And how did that moment change everything for a millionaire CEO? Maria Johnson had worked at the corporate headquarters for almost 8 years. She knew every hallway, every office, every squeaky door hinge in that building. Most days, she blended into the background, quietly vacuuming carpets before meetings, polishing the boardroom table until it shone, and making sure the trash bins were empty before anyone noticed they were full. Her pay was modest, but she took pride in her work. She believed that even the smallest tasks mattered. The executives rarely looked her in the eye. To them, she was part of the scenery, just the cleaning lady. But Maria noticed things, small things: a missing paperclip, a half-empty coffee cup in the wrong room, tense silence after certain meetings, and that day. Something far more alarming, it started with the CEO, Mr. Whitman. She'd seen him walk past dozens of times, always with a brisk stride and perfect posture. But that afternoon, something in his step faltered. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. No one else saw it? Or maybe they just didn't care. Maria couldn't shake what she'd seen. Mr. Whitman's usual confident stride had slowed to something almost fragile. His face looked pale, his lips slightly tinged with blue. She had seen that look before years ago when her father had a heart episode. She set down her mop and approached the receptionist, voice low but urgent. "I think something's wrong with Mr. Whitman," she said. The receptionist barely glanced up from her screen. "I'm sure he's fine. You should get back to your work." That pause, those 3 words cut deep. Your work. It wasn't concern. It was dismissal. Maria stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of it. She knew what they meant. You're the cleaner. You don't belong in these matters. An hour later, Mr. Whitman came into the break room to grab water. She noticed the tremor in his hand, the way he leaned on the counter for balance. Again, she tried to speak up, this time to an assistant manager. "Listen, I think he needs medical attention," she insisted. The manager gave her a tight smile. "Maria, you're not a doctor. Let's not cause unnecessary panic, okay?" She wanted to scream. Why wasn't anyone taking her seriously? Was it because she was just the cleaning lady? Or because she was a black woman in a building where no one else looked like her? By mid-afternoon, the signs were worse. Whitman was sweating through his crisp suit, breathing heavier than normal. Maria grabbed her cleaning cart and followed him discreetly down the hall. She could feel her heart pounding, not just from worry for him, but from the fear of what might happen. If she pushed too hard at the elevator, she overheard 2 executives whispering. "He's not himself today," one muttered. "Maybe stress?" The other shrugged. Stress. She knew better. This was something that could kill him if they kept ignoring it. Maria took a breath and made her choice. She left her cart right there, in the middle of the hall, and stepped into the elevator with Whitman. "Sir," she said carefully, "I think you need to sit down. Right now." He looked at her with surprise, then confusion. "I'm fine," he murmured. But his voice cracked, and his hand clutched at the wall. Her stomach dropped. She pressed the emergency stop button. Somewhere deep inside, she braced herself, not just for the medical emergency unfolding, but for the accusations that might follow. She could already hear the murmurs. Who does she think she is? And yet, she knew she couldn't walk away. The elevator doors opened to the lobby, and Maria half-guided, half-held Mr. Whitman as he stumbled forward. His skin had gone clammy, and his breathing was shallow. "Call 911, she shouted toward the security desk. The guard blinked and looked past her straight at Whitman's expensive suit before his eyes slid back to her face. "Ma'am, you can't be yelling like that in here," he said sharply, as though she was causing a scene instead of saving a life. Her voice cracked. "He's having a heart attack." A cluster of employees gathered, whispering. Some glanced at Whitman with concern, but more stared at her, suspicion in their eyes, as if she were the disruption. Seconds were slipping away. She thought of her father, the ambulance that hadn't arrived in time, the way the doctors had said if only someone had acted sooner. Maria knelt beside Whitman, ignoring the voices around her. "Stay with me," she urged, loosening his tie. His eyes fluttered shut. "Ma'am, you need to step away," the guard ordered, moving closer. She didn't move, her hands pressed firmly against Whitman's chest, starting compressions. She counted each one out loud, her voice steady, despite the tremor in her hands. Finally, someone called for help. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. In those endless seconds, Maria felt the weight of every dismissal, every "you don't belong here," every door that had been quietly closed in her life. She wasn't a doctor, she wasn't an executive, but right now, she was the only one willing to fight for his life. The paramedics burst through the doors. One of them glanced at her, surprise flickering in his eyes. "You kept him alive," he said. But Maria's hands were still trembling. She wasn't sure yet if it had been enough. Mr. Whitman survived. The doctors later confirmed it had been a massive heart attack, and Maria's quick action had saved his life. Without her intervention, he likely would not have made it to the hospital in time. In the days that followed, she returned to work quietly. There was no public announcement, no formal acknowledgement of what she had done. A few people whispered "good job" in passing, but most acted as if nothing had happened. What lingered wasn't just the adrenaline of that day. It was the memory of every moment she'd been dismissed, doubted, or told to get back to her work. Even when a man's life was on the line, her voice hadn't carried the same weight as others. Mr. Whitman eventually approached her in private. His voice was softer than she had ever heard. "Thank you, Maria," he said, eyes downcast. "Right. Oh, you, my life." She nodded, but the gratitude felt incomplete. One thank you couldn't erase years of being unseen. Maria didn't save him for recognition. She saved him because it was the right thing to do. But she couldn't ignore the truth. If her warning had been taken seriously from the start, he might never have collapsed in the first place. Her story is not unique. Everyday voices are ignored, especially when they come from people society chooses not to hear. Sometimes those choices cost lives. So the question remains, how many warnings will we dismiss before we start listening to everyone equally? And when will we realize that the value of a life isn't measured by the title on a nameplate,